Hello, everybody. Hold on. Let's see if anyone actually shows up for this. This is a very last-minute thing, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Those of you who are watching, whether you're watching the live or whether you're watching the pre-recorded stream, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I intend to do more of these live streams as time goes on. The lighting here is off. I know it's very bright. I don't know why, but we'll adjust that in the future. Jackson, how you doing, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you, Jackson. So, during this stream, in about 11 minutes, Vivek Ramaswamy, who you guys know is my favorite president, he's going to be going over his Ukraine plan. And so I intend to live stream that and cover that right here on the channel. It'll be a live video on his channel, and I will be simulcasting it. So, we'll see what he says. I think that what he said recently about Ukraine is actually very interesting and very important and very much needed. Because right now we have on one side the military-industrial complex trying to saber rattle because they are benefiting in a major way from sending all those funds towards Ukraine. The fact that you have nations across the world, their artillery stocks are now depleted because they have funded so much of Ukraine with them. The fact that you have a destabilized global economy as a result of both the sanctions put against Putin and also this conflict. The fact that there's just a bunch of different moving factors that imperil the world, imperil America, and really beg the question, what is our role in Ukraine, our legitimate role, if we have one at all? And so it's my hope and my suspicion that Vivek will provide a sufficient answer, and maybe we'll get some clarity here. That's ultimately what's important. Clarity is going to be very important in this issue, without a doubt. So let's hope we can get some clarity here. But for those of you who are with me, who are looking, watching the video right now, how are you guys doing? How's your day? Hope everything's going well. Hope you're having a nice Friday. I'm likely going to put the screen on starting soon until Vivek's announcement actually begins. Because, so I'll likely be back when Vivek's announcement actually begins. So that's when I'll come back. Okay, hold on. He's on. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's on. He's on. Hold on. I think he's on at least. I just saw a notification. Okay. All right, hold on. He's at a rally right now. I'm going to put him on right now. Share screen. Then we can see what he's talking.
And any disagreement with those ideas automatically makes you a racist. And there is no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist. So when given the choice between pledging allegiance to this new religion and being tarred with that scarlet R, everyday Americans are choosing to bend the knee. That's what's created this new culture of fear. That's effectively what Don Lemon called me on air, sitting on the set across the table from at CNN. He said basically that I'm a racist, that I can speak and disagree with him when I have black skin in this country. Now, here's the thing. I think we're at a turning point because he got fired after that. That's right. So we're at a turning point. Don't worry, the story's going to end well, but we got to see the problem with clear eyes, right? So over here, you've got this racial religion, right? Now, right around the same time as we got the racial religion, we have a second religion in this country. This is the religion of transgenderism in America, the cult of gender ideology. This one says that the sex of the person you're attracted to is hardwired on the day you're born. It had to be to count as a civil right. But it also says at the same time now, your own biological sex is completely fluid over the course of your life. Now, those two things can't make sense at the same time if you're applying logic. But if you're subscribing to a religious cult, then you can believe these things at the same time. So that's the second religion. You've got the cult of racial wokeism. You've got the cult of gender ideology. And then right around the same time, now we see the rise of a third cult in America, the cult of climatism. Now, this is a new cult that says we have to stop carbon emissions at all costs here in the United States, even though we turn a blind eye to shifting those same carbon emissions to places like China on the other side of the world. Now, that wouldn't make sense. Now, this is the same cult that would also say that we're against carbon emissions, but we're also against nuclear energy, the best known form of carbon-free energy production known to mankind. So I could go on all night, going after one cult after another, popping up like whack-a-mole, just popping up one place after another. You look, slap one down, you got the wokeism down here, transgenderism over there. Done with the transgenderism, you got the climate cult here. Done with that, you got a COVID religion popping up. Wear the mask, get the vaccine. The real question is what the heck is going on in our country that we see the rise of these different secular religions at the same time? Do you think that's a coincidence? It is not.
Nope.
It is a symptom of a deeper cancer in America. And that cancer is a void of purpose and meaning at the heart of the American soul. I'll tell you, first personally here, I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I'm the first millennial ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll tell you something about us, millennials, people younger than me too. We're all hungry for a cause. We're hungry for purpose and meaning and identity at a point in our national history when the things that used to fill that void, faith, to patriotism, to hard work, to family, these things have disappeared. That's what leaves that black hole in its wake. And how do you solve that problem? It's not just going to be by playing that game of whack-a-mole, stamping out the wokeism and the transgenderism. It's going to be to fill that hole with a vision of what it actually means to be an American today. So that's the question. What does it mean to be American? We're like on this boat, right? We left the dock. We're running from something. No. Question for us is, what are we running to? That's where we're going to have to go. What it means to be an American to me, it means you believe in ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence, that you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. Thank you. That is what it means to be an American. And by the way, that's why I'm going to put an end to race-based affirmative action in America. We're done with it. It's a cancer on our national soul. It means you believe in the rule of law, right? That if you're going to, first act of entering this country is going to break the law, I'm sorry. That means you cannot enter the country. That is what it means to be an American, which is why we will use our military to secure our own southern border instead of somebody else's border halfway around the world. That's what it means to be American. It means you believe in this radical dream that our founding fathers had 250 years ago, a dream that each of us has as a citizen, that the people who we elect to run the government, many of you on this boat cruise right now, the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, not this bureaucracy that actually runs the show today. See, that's what it means to be American. Now, if we revive these ideals, if we remember who we are, then we can actually stand up with a spine to the actual threats we face on the global stage. And the top of that list is communist China. Right? That is the real threat, not the one we face in Ukraine, because that is a non-existent threat to the United States. The real threat we face is from communist China. So what I'm going to share with you all tonight is how we're going to end that war in Ukraine without spending another dime and shift our focus to actually declaring independence from our real enemy. Anybody here know what is, thank you, I appreciate that. What is the number one threat that we face today? A treaty between two countries. Tell me who they are. I love this audience. I love New Hampshire. It is the alliance between Russia and China that is the number one threat we have ever faced since World War II. That is the biggest threat this country has faced. In 2001, the two countries entered a treaty. They said they would each back the other if either was attacked militarily. We were actually turning our attention to that before the two planes hit the Twin Towers on 9/11. Now what happened last year, those two countries took it to the next level. They called it a no-limits partnership between China and Russia. Now, United States, we're way ahead of both of them. But actually, if you look at combining those two countries, now we have a problem. Geographic landmass, supersonic missiles, hypersonic missiles, super EMP weapons, economy. Now we're getting serious. So what I think we have an opportunity to do is not just end the Ukraine war. And believe me, I have long been in the camp before it was popular of saying that I would not spend another dime of American money on a war that does not affect our interests. I appreciate that. Not another dime. And I will not apologize for that. But we can actually go even further. And I'm laying out for you what I'm going to be talking about for the next week. We're doing it first here tonight. Laying out how we actually advance our top goal. Here's the deal that I'm going to do with Vladimir Putin. Now, those are words that the media does not want to hear. But I'm going to say it again. Here's the deal that we can do with Putin is that We will stop providing aid to Ukraine. We will freeze the current lines of control. That means he gets the Donbass region. It means he gets the Crimea. And we will make a permanent commitment to tell Ukraine that you will not be admitted to NATO, not now, not ever. Those are big concessions to Russia. But we have a big ask in return, that you will exit your treaty with China. It's like what Nixon did to Mao in 1972. That's what we have a chance to do now, except Putin is the new Mao. We turn the world order then upside down, where China now can't go for Taiwan because Russia doesn't have their back anymore. That's what it means to actually think about what advances American interests. Right now, you'll hear them tell you, keep sending weapons to Ukraine. Why? We agreed in 1994 that we would respect Ukraine's sovereignty. Well, guess what? We have more than fulfilled that obligation. $200 billion in aid. That's 20 times, that's actually close to 40 times Ukraine's own annual military budget. I'm sorry, we've fulfilled our obligations. Now the question is, how do we actually advance American interests? And you drive that wedge between Russia and China. Now we've actually accomplished something. And this is where I want us to go. What are we running to as a movement? How do we actually advance the interests of this country? You do that, then we can declare independence from China. Then we have the standing to tell China that we're going to hold you accountable for unleashing hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic, using every financial lever we have available. That if you're affiliated with the CCP, you will not buy land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. We're declaring independence from you. We're done with it. In fact, I would go even further. I would say that we will ban most U.S. businesses from doing business in China until the CCP either falls or reforms its behaviors. That's what it means to actually declare independence and stand up with a spine. But thank you, I appreciate that. But here's the truth. Xi Jinping, I'll tell you, I've been an exchange student in China. I've actually done business in China. My first company, I made the mistake of opening a branch in China. When I started my second business, Strive, I said, hell no, we are not opening a branch in China because I do not want the boot of the CCP on my neck as I'm serving American clients. But what I'm telling you, this isn't made up. Okay, what China sees, what Xi Jinping thinks, here's what he's telling us. You can't declare independence from me because you are addicted to me. You're addicted to the fentanyl that I'm pumping across your southern border and now your northern border too. You're addicted to fentanyl. You're addicted to the digital fentanyl that I'm pumping into your kids' phones through TikTok and whatever else we send them. You're addicted to the financial fentanyl in the form of the national debt that we are funded. So you just try me and see if you can declare independence. You don't have it in you because you are addicted to me. That is the bluff that Xi Jinping thinks he's calling on us. And so the real question, even for our foreign policy, it isn't even about them. It's about us. Take a long, hard look in the mirror and let's ask ourselves, do we actually have it in us to make the trade-offs, to stand with the spine? Yes, to make a short-run sacrifice to declare independence from our enemy. I think we do. I think we will. But that isn't up to him. That is up to us in this country. Tell you something. I grew up into a generation, the last 20, 30 years in this country, into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences, so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion 250 years ago in places not that far from where we are today. Now, the other side, I'll tell you, they'll tell you that America's imperfect, that we have never lived up to those ideals. You know what I tell them? Deep down somewhere in there, I'll admit it. You're right. We've never actually been perfect. America is not a perfect country. You know what we are? We're a nation built on the pursuit of perfection. You know what? Our worst hypocrisy, that's who we are. Our worst hypocrisies are our best evidence that we have ideals at all. Notice how nobody ever calls China a hypocrite. Nobody ever calls Iran a hypocrite. You want to know why? Because even to be called a hypocrite, you had to have ideals in the first place. You know what we are? We're a nation built on the pursuit of perfection, and we're not gods, we're not angels, we are human beings. So anytime a group of human beings comes together to pursue a set of ideals, we will always fall short of those ideals, but we as Americans will still keep pursuing them. We will not apologize for it. We will stop just celebrating our skin-deep differences and start to celebrate again what binds us together across those differences. E pluribus unum, from many, one. That's the dream that won the American Revolution. That's the dream that reunited us after the Civil War. That's the dream that won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That's the dream that still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus is going to defeat us. That's what American exceptionalism is all about. And I promise you, that is what we together are going to revive to save this great nation. Thank you all. God bless you. God bless New Hampshire. God bless our United States of America. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll hang around talking to everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, for the record, before you leave,
Thank you.
well, leave the front anyway. You're not leaving the boat.
Run, stay on the boat.
In 2010, Don Lemon spent 8 minutes and 34 seconds trying to get me to admit live on television that the Tea Party was racist. Didn't work for him then either.
Give that up, my man. I appreciate that.
And as just another white guy, if you were Reva Martin, let me tell you, white privilege is great. I get up, I go to work every day. I come home and I say they didn't pay me more. There's a lot of fun to be had tonight. Both candidates, their teams, others will be here. Your state representative.
Okay. All right, guys. Wow. 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 So Vivek, so for those of you who are just joining, or you guys didn't hear or didn't understand all of that, Vivek basically just said he wanted to give the Donbass region to Ukraine. He wanted to concede Crimea. He wanted to basically everything that Zelensky and the Ukraine folks want. Vivek wants to concede to Russia on the condition that Putin withdraws from his relationship with China. If that's not I have never heard a political candidate make such a stunning proclamation. I am a little bit in shock. I've been following the Ukraine situation ever since the 2014 elections in Crimea. Putin kind of came in and rigged and everything. And so I've been studying the United States' relationship with Ukraine for very many years now. So to hear just that kind of rejection of orthodoxy is it's very jarring. Not in a bad way, but it's very jarring. So first of all, whether you agree with that proposal or not, this is why Vivek needs to be in the running. Because you would not have heard that. I'm not even sure President Trump would have said that. President Trump just keeps saying, well, I'll handle it. President Trump wouldn't say something like that even. I don't think he would. I don't think his deal-making would even be that radical. I'm in shock, guys. Wow. Wow. I'm in shock. I don't know what to say. I thought it was going to be like, we're going to negotiate a ceasefire, we're going to do an armistice. The fact that he wants to literally just concede the Donbass and do everything that Putin wants, but take him away from China. Wow. And here's what I'll say about this. Since the sanctions have come in, Russia has not had access to the global banking system. They've been relying almost entirely on Chinese lines of credit. China has provided Russia with credit, with all kind of resources. Even before the Ukraine situation, China and Russia were making economic sharing partnerships. So it's fascinating that Vivek recognizes that, and Vivek knows that Putin can take the Donbass. Putin can take anything he wants. But if he doesn't have that welfare person in China, that welfare place with China, then that basically means if he gets into a situation again, he'll have no one to turn to. That would significantly weaken Putin's global power in the geopolitical world. I'm still a little bit shocked. I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably going to clip this. We're going to watch that over again. I am in shock right now. Wow. Wow. I would have never. Wow. We have to watch. I'm sorry, guys. We got to watch it over again because I am in shock right now. I'm shell shocked. Let's see if the video's up for watching. It is. Okay. We're going to watch this video a little bit again, guys. I'm going to show you the part I'm talking about. I'm just shell shocked, right? I am astounded. I never thought in my lifetime I would hear what I just heard coming from Vivek to be said by any candidate running for president. Never. If you would have told me, I would have told you you're crazy. You need to go to a mental asylum, because that just completely rejects the Atlanticist, NATO type global orthodoxy, which runs the show on the international stage. Wow. I'm what do you even say? So let's see. Okay, so we're gonna play this. We're gonna play this fully. We're gonna play half of it at least, and I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. I am, again, to see a presidential candidate make such a radical proclamation. I'm amazed. Okay, guys, let's watch this again.
Then we can actually stand up with a spine to the actual threats we face on the global stage. And the top of that list is communist China. Right? That is the real threat, not the one we face in Ukraine, because that is a non-existent threat to the United States. The real threat we face is from communist China. So what I'm going to share with you all tonight is how we're going to end that war in Ukraine without spending another dime and shift our focus to actually declaring independence from our real enemy. Anybody here know thank you, I appreciate that. What is the number one threat that we face today? A treaty between two countries. Tell me who they are. I love this audience. I love New Hampshire. It is the alliance between Russia and China that is the number one threat we have ever faced since World War II. That is the biggest threat this country has faced. In 2001, the two countries entered a treaty. They said they would each back the other if either was attacked militarily. We were actually turning our attention to that before the two planes hit the Twin Towers on 9/11. Now what happened last year, those two countries took it to the next level. They called it a no-limits partnership between China and Russia. Now, United States, we're way ahead of both of them. But actually, if you look at combining those two countries, now we have a problem. geographic landmass, supersonic missiles, hypersonic missiles, super EMP weapons economy. Now we're getting serious. So what I think we have an opportunity to do is not just end the Ukraine war. And believe me, I have long been in the camp before it was popular of saying that I would not spend another dime of American money on a war that does not affect our interests.
Okay, everyone, you heard that. I will not spend another dime of American money on a war that does not affect our interest. That is standard fare for a conservative GOP candidate to say in this era. In this era, I won't say in general, because if you would have gone, let's say, even 5, 6, if you would have gone pre-Trump, you had Mitt Romney, who was a war hawk, wanting to have excursions across the world. Before him, you had the McCain era, you had the Bush era, and we saw what the Bush era did. The Bush era left millions of people around the world decimated. It started excursions in foreign nations to export democracy, things that we are still paying for to this day, that incurred debts that people in my generation, Gen Z, will probably be paying on until they die. So we've seen the consequences of the neoconservative, war hawk, blood-soaked warmonger philosophy. It is not a philosophy in any good sense. It is a profit-making motive, right? Done on behest of the military-industrial complex, and done to enrich the passions of those who believe that America has some divine place as the world's policeman. So what he's saying right now with Ukraine, in the Trump era, where we moved away from a lot of the war hawk stuff, when Trump was actually one of the, as it relates to modern peacetime presidents, Trump, out of Bush, out of Obama, out of Clinton, out of all of them, Trump was the most, I think since Carter, he was the most peacetime president. So the Trump era kind of just disrupted that trend of going to countries and bombing people. Even Obama, who the left loves to praise, he literally went into Libya. The UN passed a resolution. He mobilized NATO. He went into Libya. He bombed Libya, killed a lot of people. Then when Gaddafi was finally killed and deposed by US-backed rebels, who he funded, he let the country wallow in chaos for years. Libya had a civil war for years. They were unstable for years. He did that in the name of benevolence, and yet he destroyed an entire nation while doing so. Now, Libya is doing better right now, but for years they were in a schism. They were terrible. That country was more destabilized without Gaddafi than it ever was with Gaddafi. And I'm not defending Gaddafi. Gaddafi was an evil person. Gaddafi, Hussein, all of them were evil people. But guess what? It is not the United States' job to either be the world police or the moral police. There are plenty of leaders around the world that are evil. Them being evil does not necessitate our involvement in deposing them. But the wisdom of the neoconservative interventionist class for so many years has been that America does have an obligation to do so. This goes back as well to NATO and the Atlantic Council and our emphasis on being a part of this interconnected global sphere. What did Biden say when he came into office? Biden said America is back. America's back, baby. What did that mean? That meant he was going to continue the interventionist policies of the Obama administration that included destroying Assad regime in Libya, that included exporting weapons to rebel groups around the world, that included trying to get involved in Syria with Assad, that included so many different things. The Obama regime bombing villages in Afghanistan. How can I forget that? Barack Obama said on day one, I will get us out of this war. What did he do? He bombed villages in Afghanistan, killed an American. Barack Obama killed an American citizen without due process on foreign soil because he was a terrorist. And yeah, sure, he was a terrorist, but still, that's an American citizen. American citizens have a particular process upon which they're going to be deposed. So my point is this. The neoconservative interventionist wisdom that has guided our political action relating to war and foreign policy is being rejected right here. That's not what's phenomenal about this. What's phenomenal is something. I'll let you guys see. Let's keep going.
Appreciate that. Not another dime. And I will not apologize for that. But we can actually go even further. And I'm laying out for you what I'm going to be talking about for the next week. We're doing it first here tonight. Laying out how we actually advance our top goal. Here's the deal that I'm going to do with Vladimir Putin. Now, those are words that the media does not want to hear. But I'm going to say it again. Here's the deal that we can do with Putin is that we will stop.
Hold on. When you say, here's the deal I will do with Vladimir Putin. Okay, someone quote me on this. Within a few hours or by this time tomorrow, there will already be articles in the corporate press trying to smear Vivek as a Putin sympathizer. This is how they operate. If you break the orthodoxy and they can't actually argue with you on the merits of your claims, they have to antagonize you. They have to invalidate you in the minds of those who could potentially hear what you're saying and support it. Mark my words. They're going to try to declare him that. Mark my words. Someone quote me on this. Someone quote me on this. All right, let's keep going.
Providing aid to Ukraine. We will freeze the current lines of.
Okay, hold on. Let me roll back so we can see. Okay, this is Vivek talking about what he wants to do in his deal with Putin.
But we can actually go even further. And I'm laying out for you what I'm going to be talking about for the next week. We're doing it first here tonight. Laying out how we actually advance our top goal. Here's the deal that I'm going to do with Vladimir Putin. Now, those are words that the media does not want to hear. But I'm going to say it again. Here's the deal that we can do with Putin is that we will stop providing aid to Ukraine. We will freeze the current lines of control. That means he gets the Donbass region. It means he gets the Crimea. And we will make a permanent commitment to tell Ukraine that you will not be admitted to NATO, not now, not ever. Those are big concessions to Russia.
Wow. Putin gets the Donbass. He gets to keep Crimea uncontested. And Ukraine cannot join NATO. Wow. Holy shit. I never thought, excuse my language, I never thought, wow. Again, I'm thunderstruck. Wow. I never thought I would hear a presidential candidate say that. Wow. Let's rewind that just to make sure I heard right.
Is that we will stop providing aid to Ukraine. We will freeze the current lines of control. That means he gets the Donbass region. It means he gets the Crimea. And we will make a permanent commitment to tell Ukraine that you will not be admitted to NATO, not now, not ever. Those are big concessions to Russia. But we have a big ask in return, that you will exit your treaty with China. It's like what Nixon did to Mao in 1972. That's what we have a chance to do now, except Putin is the new Mao. We turn the world order then upside down, where China now can't go for Taiwan because Russia doesn't have their back anymore. That's what it means to actually think about what advances American interests. Right now, you'll hear them tell you, keep sending weapons to Ukraine. Why? We agreed in 1994 that we would respect Ukraine's sovereignty. Well, guess what? We have more than fulfilled that obligation. $200 billion in aid, that's 20 times, that's actually close to 40 times Ukraine's own annual military budget. I'm sorry, we've fulfilled our obligations. Now the question is, how do we actually advance American interests? And you drive that wedge between Russia and China. Now we've actually accomplished something. And this is where I want us to go. What are we running to as a movement? How do we actually advance the interests of this country? You do that, then we can declare independence from China.
Wow. Let's recap. Vivek's Ukraine plan has the following items. Number one, allow Putin to have Crimea uncontested and allow Putin to have the Donbass region uncontested. Number two, stop sending aid to Ukraine. Number three, refuse Ukraine admission into NATO. Wow. Now, the last one there is not very uncommon. So Ukraine has had a lot of problems in trying to get admitted to NATO. In fact, Zelensky, before the invasion, I think during the summer of 2021, Zelensky actually went and visited Joe Biden to renew the strategic defense initiative, which the United States has with Ukraine. We've had it since 2014. We've been giving them weapons, giving them support. People don't realize we actually have been funding Ukraine for almost a decade now. People don't realize that. People think that it just started when Russia, the mean, bad Russia, invaded Ukraine. No. The United States and national security complex has been funding Ukraine for over a decade now. Billions of dollars. And renewing it each year. Renewing it every single year. So that's just one thing. That's one thing. But Zelensky literally went to the White House and he tried to press Biden on Ukraine admission. And Biden said he laughed it off. He laughed it off because Ukraine has some serious internal problems. We've seen this with the Azov Battalion and the various corrupt elements of the Ukraine government that have been a means of contention, even amongst American lawmakers in the funding of Ukraine. Congress has debated about the Azov Battalion before when it came to actually funding Ukraine in the past before the invasion. People don't realize this. People think the Azov Battalion is a right-wing lie or propaganda tool. No, these are serious people who have some very evil beliefs, who happen to be close to levers of power in Ukraine. Is it everybody? No, it's not everybody. No, it's not everybody. But that is one of the reasons why NATO has refused to admit Ukraine all these years. They could have admitted Ukraine 2 years ago if they wanted to. They could have admitted Ukraine when Zelensky came to Washington in 2021 if they wanted to. They didn't. They didn't admit Ukraine. They didn't do it. Not because they hate Ukraine. It's actually, for NATO, it's strategically beneficial to have yet another country right on Russia's border. So NATO actually has every geopolitical reason to want to have Ukraine in their pocket. 100%. So why didn't NATO admit Ukraine? Because the country has some serious problems. They're not really a benefit to the alliance. That's why they didn't admit Ukraine. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, he actually played footsie with the entire ordeal. Jens Stoltenberg said to Putin, when Putin in 2021 said, if you try to admit Ukraine into NATO, that's a red line that I will respond to with conflict. Jens Stoltenberg said, well, it's Ukraine's right to be in NATO. And if they get admitted to NATO, Russia shouldn't be scared because it's simply a defensive alliance. He said that NATO is a defensive alliance, which is a lie, by the way. Prima facie, NATO is a defensive alliance, but it's actually an expansionist arm of the philosophy of Atlanticism, the philosophy of this sort of interconnected, intermingled global cooperation network, where global sovereignty is secondary and international rule and law and diktat is primary. That's what NATO is, if you want my personal opinion. NATO is not some benevolent defensive pact. NATO is actually a political arm of a political philosophy that seeks to erode national sovereignty at every turn. That's what NATO is. And every person, every major world leader knows this. Putin knew this. Stoltenberg knew this. And despite knowing this, he decided to use the matrix-produced language of we're a defensive alliance, as if anyone who's paying attention, any serious student of international relationships, would actually believe that. I'm critical of the United States' involvement in NATO. I think that Trump did a very good thing by trying to get our funding cut from NATO by 1%, of course. Of course, that made the entire alliance go crazy. Why? Well, because the United States military defense is paying for Germany and Sweden and all these other countries to have a welfare system. Basically. These European countries are always touted for their safety nets and their amenities they give their citizens. But everything has a trade-off to it. They have to expropriate funds from some people to give to other people what they should be able to give on their own. But by doing that, they also have a limited pool of resources to fund more important endeavors like the defense of the nation. So instead of doing that, they just outsource it to NATO. And NATO is the one that defends the nation. That's how this works. NATO is basically the welfare system for socialist European countries. If you want the honest truth, guys, I mean, that's what it is. I'm sorry I'm not being so eloquent today, but that's what it is. And these think tanks like the Atlantic Council have convinced Americans that they have an obligation to be a part of NATO. Which, by the way, we don't. We have an obligation to defend the nation and our own sovereignty. That's our obligation. That's our obligation. We have no obligation to be a part of this bigger global effort at expansionism. Well, Christian, if we're not in NATO, won't China and Russia steamroll everybody? Well, Russia has the economy the size of Texas, which is weak. And really, other than a few excursions in the Middle East, Russia has its hands full. And I'm not entirely sure there's even morale in Russia, by the way, for Putin to continue what he's doing. If reports are true. Now, of course, those reports can be seeded by Western propaganda firms. But I suspect, from what I've been seeing over the past year or so, that some Russian citizens, like those Russian parents whose children were told they were going off for training exercises and they ended up going to die in Kiev, I imagine that there is actually a dissatisfaction within Russia from Russian citizens. And I know that for a fact because there have been many anti-war protesters in Russia that have been arrested. Now, as for China, they're already steamrolling the world. China owns quite a few African countries. China owns quite a few Caribbean countries. China is going to own a lot of Latin American countries. They are making these predatory deals with these poorer nations to buy them up. So even with NATO around, China is still steamrolling everybody. So really the question becomes this: what's the purpose of NATO at this point? What's the function of NATO? If it can't stop China from sticking its tendrils into every single country that is poor and is willing to listen to them, what's the purpose of NATO? There is none, except to uphold this broader philosophy that, as I established a few moments ago, is unsound and corrosive to national sovereignty. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? Am you guys understanding what I'm saying? Please respond to that. I'll make sure you guys are understanding every word I'm saying right now. You guys understanding what I'm saying? I hope so. It's my hope that you are. It's my hope that you are. Yes, I don't talk about foreign policy all that much. Primarily because, well, for a few reasons, actually. Number one, I still need to study a lot more. Number one. Number two, foreign policy is like its own niche on YouTube. There are like a bunch of people that do it and do it better than me. So I kind of, if I do something, I want to be as close to the best at it as possible. If not the top one, at least in the top three. Foreign policy, I have way more to go if I want to even be close to that. But number three, it's interesting, foreign policy, it's important, but it's not interesting enough for me to spend thousands of hours reading through past treaties and crap like that. I'd rather talk about the importance of philosophy and the culture and all these other things to a flourishing society, and how to resist certain ideas that are overtaking the nation and the proper political order of America. I want to talk about domestic issues than I would foreign issues. But hey, I'm reading, I'm learning, and as time goes on, I do intend to talk more about foreign policy. But I hope you guys are getting what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be too dismissive. So back to Vivek. Vivek's policy here actually signals a willingness. This is interesting. It signals a willingness to nullify a lot of NATO's goals as this expansionist, interventionist regime, which then makes me think that Vivek might be in favor of divorcing America from NATO in general. He already has my support. But if he were to come out in favor of reevaluating America's standing in NATO, I would go to Ohio, where his campaign is based, and I would become a 24-hour door knocker for Vivek. I promise you. Because I have been screaming about NATO and its perverse influence on American national sovereignty for a long, long, long time. I've had this intuition in my bones since I was a young boy that what NATO has done and what it continues to do is not actually creating this peaceful world order. It's creating a centralized world order where certain people have influence and power and they can levy it through certain means like the UN, and others don't. They're outside of that narrative. That's effectively what NATO has been doing. That's effectively what NATO does. They're a narrative agent. They're the arm of a political philosophy, and they're also a narrative agent. It's fascinating. So, yes, I am astounded that Vivek wants to concede to Putin, but I also understand it. Because once again, as I've argued this for a very long time. America has no moral obligation to be involved in Ukraine. Zero, zilch, none. No moral obligation. Well, Christian, we have a geopolitical obligation. No, well, guess what? I hold a moral obligation that a nation has over a geopolitical obligation founded on ideas that actually harm the nation. What is more superior, friends? A moral obligation based on sound principles that a nation necessarily, by virtue of its existence, has to abide by, or a geopolitical obligation that was created by people at a particular time in a particular place to further some power-hungry person's interest? Which is more? Which should we value more, friends? Moral or geopolitical? I think the answer is quite clear. I think it's actually exceptionally clear to me. There's this tired talking point used by a lot of neocons, and they say, we have to respect our alliances. Well, guess what? An alliance is a contract. And in principle, a contract is a mutual exchange of value. If America is allowing you to have a social welfare system while you don't spend zilch on national defense, that's not a mutual exchange of value. That's a one-sided exchange of value. So I don't see how most of the alliances we have today, with maybe the exception of Taiwan, are mutual exchange of value. They aren't. Taiwan's interesting because you can make a national security argument about Taiwan. Because Vivek, as he mentioned in the speech, is correct. Taiwan has the largest semiconductor manufacturing plant in the world. So if Taiwan were to go, China would be empowered by that. America would be in a very perilous state economically. How does one explain that? How does one deal with that? Well, there are a few ways. You can, as Vivek suggested, use diplomatic means to try to diffuse the situation and convince China not to make any drastic moves, which comes with its own range of political and moral implications, by the way. You could ignore the issue and watch one of the most valuable pieces of technology to your country's economy get overtaken by your foreign adversary. And they basically, even though China right now, they hold a lot of our foreign debt, they would control us even more if they had that. Or you can just fight over it and cause another war that'll destabilize the global order, that'll probably spark the risk of nuclear proliferation and things of that sort, cause people to die, more money to be lost. I don't know what option is best. Well, I do. War is not an option. America should not go to war over Taiwan. No way, shape, and form. There's no way we can justify a war over Taiwan. But I also don't think, and this is just my opinion, I'm not sure from a standpoint of national preservation that we can absolutely do nothing, even diplomatically. Well, we can do something, actually. What we could do, we could actually jumpstart semiconductor manufacturing here in America, invest in that, and then divest ourselves from Taiwan, which, by the way, it would be my dream for America to be able to divest itself from these entangling alliances. But that'll take time. So until the point that America can actually construct its own semiconductor plants, what do we do to offset the potential of China coming in and controlling some of our most critical infrastructure? War is not an option. So what do? You guys are smart. They have a pretty smart audience. You guys are smarter than me. What do we do? Please tell me. I don't know. I don't know. What do we do? I don't know. What do we do? What do we do? In my opinion, yeah, actually, I don't know. I give you guys the options. Maybe there are more options. Maybe I've given you guys a false choice. But what do? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. So while you guys think of an answer, I'm going to play more of this Vivek speech. So let's watch this.
Then we have the standing to tell China that we're going to hold you accountable for unleashing hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic using every financial lever we have available. That if you're affiliated with the CCP, you will not buy land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. We're declaring independence from you. We're done with it. In fact, I would go even further. I would say that we will ban most U.S. businesses from doing business in China until the CCP either falls or reforms its behaviors. That's what it means to actually declare independence and stand up with a spine.
Okay. Did you guys hear what he said? He wants to ban U.S. businesses from conducting commerce in China. Wow. Wow. Again, these are very unorthodox ideas. They're revolutionary even. Wow. Wow. Okay, so I want you guys to think. So I want you guys to think about what I've talked about tonight. I need to go and take my walk because it's still sun out. I still have energy in me. I still got life in me, God willing. I need to go take my walk. But think about what we talked about tonight. Meditate on it. Here's what I'm thinking of doing for my locals people. I'm thinking of actually giving you guys questions of the day on different topics around the world. And we can just meditate on it and be a pensive community, because this is what my channel is about. I'm trying to incubate critical thought in all of you, right? Many of you found me from critical race theory debates and woke stuff. I want you guys to actually think about a wide range of issues with me, of course. So think about it. I'll be thinking about it as well. This weekend, we have a video coming out on Pride Month, which I'm very excited for. So we have that coming out. Pride Month is absolutely horrible. I won't spoil the video. I will wait until you guys have a chance to watch the video. Then we'll see what you guys think. So talk about that. But no, yeah, I think that our last video, by the way, guys, did amazing. I'm actually so happy. I'm so delighted, actually, that we did so good. 2,000 views in under 21 hours. That's what the record was, I believe. We now have about 2.1 thousand views on my back end of the system for that video. So we did great. We did great. And I look forward to continuing that trend as time goes on. Our next live stream will be on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I should have someone on. I think I got someone confirmed for that day, but I'll just double check. But until that point, my friends, I want you guys to stay inspired. I want you guys to stay enlightened. I want you guys to stay hopeful. And I most importantly want you guys to go ahead and stay pensive. Good night, my friends.